The Independent National Electoral Commission says about 2.3 million Nigerians have so far concluded their registration at the end of 12 weeks of the ongoing continuous voter registration. Based on INEC's record, a total of 2,316,232 people have registered, including 33,221 persons with disabilities. Osun State tops states with the highest number of eligible voters with about 185,089 adults registered, followed by Imo with 143,386 and Kano with 132,290. Sokoto has 123,320 and Lagos 109,693 registrants. The CVR is yet to take off in Anambra State, and that's due to the recent governorship election. Our Executive Director of Credible Leadership and Citizens Awareness, Dr. Gabriel Nwambu, joins me on the news for Mondays. Good to have you join us, Dr. Gabriel.
Good afternoon, and thanks for having me.
So, interesting figures. Over 2 million new registrants. They have now been added to the voter registration, voter register rather. I mean, it seems low when you look at the number of people in the country. But what do you make of that figure?
Yeah. Thank you so much. You see, the CVR was introduced by the former INEC chairman, Professor Mahmoud Yakubu. You know, before now, it used to be something that is done every 4 years. But right now, with the CVR's introduction, it is done annually. That is for those who were not up to 18, to be able to register so that they can vote, But the figure, about 2 million that has just registered, is relatively poor. But however, I opine really that it is work in progress. It is something that begun in August, the 18th August, and there's still room for other people to also register. It's going to also continue by next year, So it is work in progress.
Does this also speak to voter education and the work of the state governments themselves? Because you see that some states have, for example, Osun State is topping the list, followed by Imo State. But in some other states, it's quite low. Is it that maybe state governors or state governments are not collaborating with INEC in terms of voter education?
For voter education, and INEC, the job should not be left for INEC alone. INEC is already doing so much, as it were, when it affects, it has to do with sensitization of Nigerians about voting and voting issues. But the job should not be for INEC alone. State governments, state governors should be able to, sensitize their people to be able to come out and register so that they'll be able to vote. There is also issues that have to do with trust issues. There are citizens of Nigeria that are over 18 and they will tell you they never voted, they never registered. Why? Because there is a trust issue. The moment INEC is able to assert its foot and be able to tell people that their vote can really count in the real sense of it, people will start getting more confident in the system. People will start believing in INEC. But for now, there are also some percentage of persons who do not believe in the system. They believe that their votes do not count. But however, INEC, as it affects the new helmsman, Professor Joash, who are just taking over, the command of INEC, it is still a work in progress. The man is already, has hit the ground running. And I believe this trust deficit, trust issues will be addressed squarely.
And Dr. Gabriel, just in terms of the trust issues, because we just when we look at the just concluded election in Anambra State, about 98.8 voters collected people who registered collected their voter card. But when you look at the figures of those who turned up for elections, it's quite low compared to those who had collected their voter card. And I'm wondering, how do we translate this new figure to over 2 million people to people who actually come out to vote during election? I mean, the general election is just around the corner.
Yeah, thank you so much. You see, actually in Anambra State, 2,802,790 persons registered voters in Anambra State. And then the total number of PVCs collected is 2,770,069, representing, 98.8%, which is quite huge. Now, ironically, the number of accredited voters, in other words, the number of people who turned out during elections on the 8th of November was just 598,229 persons, signifying 21.34%. For us, 21.34% is very low, and that is 1/5 of the total number of registered voters in Anambra State. That is not the way to go. It is very, very low. Anybody who scored 21% in an exam has failed, and has really failed woefully.
Absolutely.
But what are we saying? We are saying that there are a lot to be done. That the issue of sensitization should not be left to INEC alone. INEC has to also bring in reputable civil society organizations to actually help. Political parties should also ensure that they educate their people to know, the imperatives of voting during elections. And then so much more can be done, building the trust issues,
and we have
improving the accessibility and logistics, strengthening voter education and mobilization.
I mean, we have about a year. Safety. We have about a year just before the next election. We're hoping that INEC and political parties will take advantage of that for voter education. Always a pleasure to have you on. Thank you for your time. Dr. Gabriel Nwambu.
Thanks for having me. Good afternoon.